Mr. Milliard, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So
Hello.
you've laid out what you say are your five main priorities: economy, services, culture, housing, regions. We notice there's no mention there of identity or language. Why is that?
Well, obviously, these are important issues in Quebec, but this is not the reason I'm getting into politics. I want to talk about bread and butter issues, and I think that it's about time we talk about the economy, our primary sectors, our healthcare system, and housing. When you look at different polls of what are the priority, elements for Quebecers, housing, cost of living is up there, and not identity and separation for sure.
I think all Quebecers do agree with what you just said, but for the people who are the minority groups in Quebec, there are some issues that they are concerned about. For example, Bill 21 on religious symbols. Your predecessor, Pablo Rodriguez, said he would not modify the bill. He said secularism brought social peace to Quebec. I know that we're waiting for the Supreme Court to rule on this bill, but what are your personal thoughts on this?
While waiting for the Supreme Court decision is still key to me because that's the way I want to work in a very rigorous way. That being said, if you want my personal opinion, the consensus that we have with the Bouchard-Taylor Commission is much closer to what I personally think. Is this a priority for me in the coming years? We'll see about that. The proposition of the party is not to renew the notwithstanding clause in 2029, but we'll see what the court has to say because we live, in a state of law.
And what about Bill 40? Do you think the English community should have its own school boards?
I totally agree with that, and I'm all about, protecting. This is obvious to me, fundamentally rights for the English-speaking communities, whether in healthcare, in education. In the coming weeks, months, I will be meeting with leaders, with organizations of the community. As you probably know, I live in the Eastern Townships in North Hadley. So there's English-speaking communities throughout Quebec, and I will be meeting them to ensure that I get their concerns.
You're well aware that it's always very difficult for a government when the expectations of the majority run counter to the needs of a minority. You know, we see this very often when it does come to language here in Quebec. How do you plan to walk that line between the majority expectation and the minority group needs?
Well, that's a good question. It's a balance between regulations, laws, but also the tone that politicians use. And as I think, for sure, the CAQ has been dividing us for 8 years, and Parti Québécois, is all about dividing us so that we can leave Canada. So at the Liberal Party of Quebec, we're all about unity. We're all about talking to unify Quebecers. I know these are general terms, but in the coming weeks, I will be coming out with a plan to make sure that all Quebecers from all walks of life, all languages, all origins feel finally free and at home in Quebec.
Because I think, you know, one of the questions that I hear over and over the years is that nobody really seems to remember what the Quebec Liberal Party stands for. You know, the other parties sort of have this clear message. But I think the Quebec Liberal Party over the years, it has sort of lost that sort of identifying characteristic that people have with it. What do you think the Quebec Liberal Party should stand for under your leadership?
The past years have been quite difficult. Let's be honest and lucid about it. But one of my mentor, I would say, is Robert Bourassa, and Robert Bourassa has been pretty good at unifying a lot of the regions of Quebec. Obviously, there were some issues with the language regulations, but all in all, the fact that he was a nationalist, a regionalist, and also, of course, a federalist is something that really appeals to me. I want to lead a very strong Quebec government, but we want Canada to work. So we can negotiate. We don't have to always agree with Canada, but in the end, we want Canada to work. We think that a strong Quebec and a united Canada is the best deal in town for Quebec.
You know, one of the constant complaints of the Anglophone community is that the Quebec Liberal Party has always taken them for granted. What is your message to them today?
that I will be on the ground. I will be meeting them. As you can hear, I come from the French-speaking, majority in Quebec. I come from Lévis. But I've learned English through school, through work. I had the privilege recently to teach at Bishop's University, close to my place in the townships. So I'm very well aware about the diversity of the different realities of Quebecers, and I will make all that I can to earn your trust and your confidence in the coming months.
Okay. Well, Monsieur Milliard, thank you very much for taking time to speak to us today.
Thank you.